Hey, welcome to another episode of the Not Scrum Done podcast. I'm your co-host, Adriana Marshall, and that's my amazing co-host.
Grand Scrum Master Scott, greetings everyone.
Today, we're going to be talking about ethics in Scrum. We had a subscriber reach out to us and send us a message that said, I received feedback after not passing the PSM3. The feedback that I received was about ethics in Scrum. When discussing ethics, be careful not to confuse disrespect or bad behavior with unethical behavior. Could a team member be ethical and disrespectful? In a Scrum context, why would unethical behavior be so damaging? Can you elaborate on what would be unethical in Scrum? Is being disrespectful one of the ways of being unethical? So we're going to answer the last two questions. Can you elaborate on what would be unethical in Scrum? And is being disrespectful one of the ways of being unethical? So I'll start us off with the definition of ethics. The definition of ethics is moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity, while disrespect means showing a lack of respect or courtesy, being impolite. Scott, do you want to talk a little bit about the differences and some unethical things that you've seen in Scrum?
Yes, Andriana, thank you so much. Beautiful question, by the way. Sorry you didn't pass the PSM3 exam. It is a hard exam. But here's some things that hopefully that will help you get it the next time around, because ethics is a big part. Now, let me take a step back and identify when we in Scrum in this Agile space, we have two documents. We have Scrum and we also have the Agile Manifesto of Software Development. Now, let me take a step back and just give you a little history so that we can bring all this together for you. Now, when you think about a doctor, in order to become a doctor at some point in time, you're going to have to swear on the Holy Bible that you will not take somebody else's life. If you're becoming a lawyer, you're going to have to swear on the Holy Bible that you won't do anything against the U.S. Constitution. When I became a PMP, Andriana, when you came a PMP, we had a section in there, a code of ethics sections that basically said, hey, we will not take on any projects that we know we cannot do. That's part of getting our PMP. Now, when it comes to software and IT development, there is no standardized code of ethics across the board, like a doctor, like a lawyer, like a PMP certification. So all we have is the Scrum Guide and the 5 values in the Scrum Guide, which is commitment, focus, openness, respect, and courage. And then we have the manifesto of Agile software development. Those 4 values. That's all we have to keep people to do the right things. I think in most cases, developers are very ethical people, but we do have these things in place to help us make sure that we all align and going in the same direction. We want to build something amazing, that's safe, that's not going to hurt, harm, or endanger anybody. And that's all up under the umbrella of ethics. Now, with that in mind, I'm thinking of what would be unethical in the environment. Now, I'm thinking about the Agile Manifesto in terms of it talks about having excellence in coding. So let's say we on a team that we are Scrum Masters or we in an environment where we writing code to do something. Let's say it's a website. Let's say our definition of done is to have quality working code and no technical debt, but yet we get to the end of the sprint and we have a lot of technical debt going into the product backlog, which in this case represents crappy code, bad code. We did some stuff, but it's not quite perfect because we cut some corners because we took too much in at sprint planning instead of raising our hand and say, hey, have the courage to say this is too much work, that we cannot complete this work without doing something unethical. Hopefully that example helps in terms of something that you're doing intentionally. We're trying to get it done, but we want to get it done the right way. We want to make sure that thing is high quality, it meets our definition of done, and that we're not intentionally doing something that's like writing crappy code or something like that to get there. We don't want to do that. That would be unethical. Andriana.
I'll add a few more. Doing work that doesn't add value, agreeing to work that your team has not agreed to. So you're telling the client one thing or you're telling the customer one thing and not involving the Scrum team. I think that's a big part of it. Is if you've been to our PSM1 class, that is feeding me a squirrel burger. If you haven't, you're missing out on that squirrel burger analogy, but ultimately you are taking on a responsibility that isn't yours to take on. You're giving a commitment that isn't yours to give. Forcing people to do commitments that they didn't agree to is unethical. You said poor quality. I would add poor quality increments that don't meet the definition of done. You've agreed to the definition of done, and you're now saying, I'm just going to cut these corners and not meet them. I do believe that falls under the unethical category without being disrespectful or rude to someone. I do believe there are clear lines, and you laid that out with the examples that you gave. I think that were really clarified that. Also, you mentioned having the courage to say something. I do think when we're thinking of the Scrum context, not being transparent, not being open, not providing timely feedback, not giving stakeholders, our product owner, our other team members the correct information to make better decisions, I would put that under unethical in Scrum. And the last thing is changing Scrum to fit your organization instead of doing the hard work to make the organizational changes needed. Do you have anything else, Scott?
Those are all great points, Andriana. Again, you're asking this question in regards of the PSM3 exam, but our examples are applicable for real life examples. And the PSM3 exam are all real life examples that, have been documented. So your approach on the exam should be, of course, answer the question, but if there's any way you could put in a value, which is the ethics, okay, maybe this team is not embodying the value of commitment, focus, openness, respect, and courage. If there's any way on the answers that you could integrate that into your answer, do it. And for those of you who are working in the environment, use the values in the same way. You got a situation, you don't know how to handle it. Okay, well, go back and think about the 5 values of the Scrum Guide and say, hey, do I have the courage to speak up on this thing? Does the team look like they're committed to our sprint goal? Are we focused on getting to done? Are we respecting each other? And just creating that environment where we just open and have the courage to speak up. And I think whether you're taking the exam or whether you're using the stuff in real life, I think in both cases you will be very successful if you approach it that way.
Great examples. Thank you. We gave you a few examples about ethics in Scrum that will help not only on the PSM3, but in general and in your workplace. These are just a little bit of the examples. There are plenty more out there. If you need any more information, let us know in the comments and we'll provide more details. Also, you can join our email subscriber list. And if you made it to the end of this video, that means you have an attention span greater than a goldfish.
Be legendary, everyone, but not Scrum Dom.